Good morning, YouTube. Welcome back. Today I wanted to do another video for the Gardening 101 series, which is meant for beginner gardeners. Now I've talked about starting seeds and hardening them off. Today I wanted to talk about growing something, like an actual kind of a growing guide. One of the easiest things for beginners to grow is beans. They're very easy, they grow well, they're very forgiving. There are some tips that are definitely helpful. So we are going to get into the different types of beans and different tricks for them. Now, you can grow green beans for green beans, which is an immature bean pod, or you can grow it for dry beans where you want it to grow all the way and you want the bean that is inside of the pod. Your green beans, well, they don't necessarily have to be green. Those are the kinds you get at the store, but when you're growing your own garden, you can get all kinds of stuff and all kinds of different colors. I like to grow purple ones. This year I'm mainly growing a purple potted one, so the outside is purple, and it's called Blauhild. And I'm growing a rattlesnake bean, which is green with purple streaks on it. There are so many different colors and variations. They're not all just green. Green refers to the fact that it's immature. So you need to figure out whether you're growing it for an immature pod, or like a green bean, or for dry beans. There's also two ways that it can grow: a bush bean or a pole bean. A pole bean will get very long and will keep going up, and it will climb. And beans will climb almost anything. And some pole beans can get very long. The ones that I grow can get about 15 feet long under good growing conditions. Some only get 5 or 6 feet long. And so there is a range. So you've got to look at how long your particular bean will grow, so that you have the right trellising for it to grow up, because pole beans do need something to grow up. You don't want them going across the ground. They can make a big mess, and then your beans are touching the ground and they're staying wet, and bugs can eat them, and you want them to go up something. If you have a fence, they can grow up your fence that's already there. You don't have to build anything for it. If you don't have a fence, you might have to build something. But I have all kinds. I have pole beans that I grow for green beans. I have a pole variety of dry bean. I have bush beans, both for green bean and for dry beans. I've got it all. Now this bed behind me, I dedicate to my dry beans. I have grown 3 types in the past: black beans, kidney beans, and pinto. But the black beans just aren't that productive, and I'm really the only one that likes them. So this year I'm concentrating on the pinto and the kidney beans. The kidney beans are a bush variety, but the pintos are a pole bean. However, the pintos don't get all that tall. 6, 8 feet tall, they really top out there. So I have these poles, these wooden stakes in the ground, and they will grow up them just fine, just a plain stake. But when you grow a dry bean, you have to let them mature on the plant. And as the plant starts to die back because the pods are maturing, they will let go of these poles, and they'll just kind of slide down, and then they're sitting in the grass and they're on the ground, and they start to mold. So in order to fix that, I added string going across. You can see in front of her clothing there is the nylon string.
Wiggle, 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 wiggle.
The string will help keep them up even as they start to slide back down, which I can show later on, but these are just planted. They're not even sprouted yet. The bush beans, however, they don't need any support. They just grow in a little bush, and then that's it. Generally, your bush beans will mature mostly at one time, but the pole beans tend to mature at very different times. So the pintos, we have to start checking them before the plants actually die back, and there'll start to be a few pods here and there that are actually ripe and need to come off. If I waited until it was all dead, then some of them have already gotten too dry, or if it's too wet out, they'll mold. So I have to start checking them periodically. Even though they're still mostly done at one time, it's a bigger range of days than a normal bush variety, but not as bad as a regular pole bean, which we'll get to in a minute. The bush beans, they're mostly done at one time. You'll have a few stragglers, especially if you have like some that get more shade than others. They'll mature slower, so then they'll be done a little bit later. But generally the bush beans, once it starts looking sickly, start checking for the dry kidney beans. If you're gonna grow a pole bean that's for a green bean, those are the ones that tend to get longer. Mine tend to be 15, 20 feet long. Some only like 10, but you're gonna need something a little bit more substantial for them to grow up. This is what I like to use. This is fencing, and it actually makes an arch way above my head. But it's held on by these T-posts, these metal T-posts. They are 6 feet, I think, T-posts. And there's 2 on one side and then 2 on the other side to make an arch. It doesn't have to be an arch. You can make it a wall, but it does need a nice sturdy support to hold it up. But the nice thing about these is these holes here are 4 inches apart. They make for a great spacing reference because the pole beans have 4-inch spacing, so 1 for each section, or you could do it on the lines, but it makes it easier. Now, any kind of a bean, it really is best to just direct sow it. You can start them early if you have a super short growing season, but they don't like to be transplanted. You can do it though. I did it my first year, but it's not really necessary. They grow so quick, you're only gonna get a couple weeks because of how fast they grow, but it really is just better to direct sow them. Now I have planted these, but they haven't sprouted yet. But beans are really a plant them and forget about them until it's time to harvest kind of a plant. I haven't done my regular bush beans. I like to grow the Cherokee wax and the dragon tongue bush beans. Those are a green bean, but they are bush varieties, and I haven't planted those yet, but they're gonna be right over there. But they really are the easiest plant to grow. So if you're gonna pick something as a beginner, I suggest beans. But I think that's all I have for today, so thanks for coming along with me. May the Father bless you. Shalom.